Hello, everyone. This is Michael Broom from the Center for Human Systems with your Conversations with Successful Leaders series. Today, we'll be talking with Troy Cowan of W.L. Gore and Associates. Troy, how are you today?
I'm good, Dr. Broom. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine, just fine. Okay, so you wanted to talk about staying out of the way. That's an interesting topic. Tell us well, first tell us about you, and then you can tell us about that topic.
Yeah, sure. I am a product manager. In Gore terms, it's called product specialist. My focus is the mobile electronics industry. And so we develop products and solutions that create waterproofness and contamination protection for mobile devices. And so my focus is to lead and support development teams on the material and process side to create solutions for our customers.
So how many folks do you lead?
I roughly lead about 22
Oh,
people, and it's a global team. So there is a combination of what we call associates, both in the US and also in China. And then we have some support associates that I also partially lead in Japan as well.
I guess that's got to keep you pretty busy there, huh?
Lots of early and late calls, but it's worth the effort. Yeah.
Super. I've never talked to a leader that thought they should stay out of the way. So talk to
Yeah.
me about what you mean by that.
Yeah, it was a concept that was taught to me by one of my mentors. And, you know, I was very focused on finding out how to impress my leader. And by doing that, I was always delivering great ideas to them on things that I wanted to do. And I was looking for that affirmation, right? Um, and I had to be told, like, hey, you don't have to come to me every time. You have a great idea, pursue it. I don't want to be the gateway for that. And it took me a little while to understand that it wasn't that he didn't care. He was giving me the freedom, right, to develop and grow. And so we talked about this concept of staying out of the way.
Hmm.
If you have motivated people that you are leading who are good at what they do or have an ambition to be good at what they do, I think it's very important that you don't hinder them in some way. And so it's very easy to become a gatekeeper that they run everything through you. But you don't want that. You want your the people that you lead to have some sense of freedom, right, to drive toward what they're passionate about. And I think if you allow that space, you'll typically get great results.
That's fascinating that you want to give your people freedom. You know, so many leaders are so focused on they want productivity, and they don't talk about freedom.
Right.
So I can't imagine that productivity is not something that you want. So so
Mhm.
how do those two things hook up?
Well, I think the productivity is a byproduct of at least the approach that I take. So I feel like if you give people space to pursue things that they're passionate about, they'll be self-motivated,
Okay.
ambitious, and the productivity will come. Right. I think often leaders, often in leadership positions, you have metrics around productivity. And when you have a number put to it, you drive toward that number. Right. And then so you often take your focus off of the process
Hmm.
or the purposes of achieving the number. I like to look at it differently. I like to look at the process. How can I create a space for the people that I lead to create a good result? And I think the productivity comes as a byproduct of that.
Hmm. So how's that different from being a laissez-faire, hands-off kind of leader?
I think that you have to always be providing visionary direction, right? And so it's not that I don't communicate and interact with the people that I lead. Um, I help to, you have to create the solution, right? You have to give them the idea that this is the place that we want to get to. How
Hmm.
we get there, there's probably lots of different ways to do that. I don't always have the best idea. I have an idea, but it may not be the best one. But you tell me what you think, and
Okay.
and then let's try to prove. Let's. The direction is here. This is where we need to go. But how we get there, I think, is flexible. I'd much rather for what someone that I lead to pursue a direction, a path that they feel comfortable on,
Hmm.
as opposed to taking a path that I direct them to that they're unfamiliar with.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I like what you're saying, but then suppose you got somebody who is motivated, but to do something that is off the vision that you're after.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's where the true leadership comes, right? Because I think as a leader, you should first be curious. Let's find out why you feel that the direction that we should go into is not within the scope of the vision, right? That we need to achieve. And then from that, have a conversation about what the decision will be. Ultimately, as a leader, somebody's got to make a decision at some point. But I think it's good that if you have the people that you lead included in the conversation,
Mhm.
they may not necessarily agree with the decision, but quite often they can support it. And I think that's okay too.
Okay. So then just through having them be part of your process, that also is motivating,
I would hope so.
right? It's
Absolutely.
kind of a collaborative process that you have come up with. And when folks feel included, that's often motivating all by itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. I think often in companies like Gore that has innovative products, the technical solution usually finds itself. It's
What you
having,
mean by that?
yeah, so, it's very easy to get requirements from a customer, right? And then go find a solution that meets those requirements. That's math and science. That's pretty well known. The math is math. It's always going to be math. But often things can go awry in a development project if you don't have the motivated people behind it driving toward the best possible solution.
Ah, I think I get you now. You know,
Yeah,
that math does not go awry.
right.
It is what it is,
It is what it is.
and the engineering is the engineering, the science is the science. So
Yes.
when things go awry, it's just about always the people.
Right. Right.
Uh-huh.
The human system, right?
A human system,
Yeah,
yes,
the human system matters. Yeah, I learned
yes.
that as well.
From a very wise person.
Very, very wise person.
Yes, yes, indeed. All right. So,
I,
yeah, so,
Michael, I
oh,
just maybe one more point. Sorry to cut
yes.
you off. I think one of the worst things that could happen when you're leading a team of highly intelligent people is for people to think in terms of their job. Not my job is my job, right? That I think that is very harmful to have a productive team. You want people who are willing to step outside of their wheelhouse, right? Because there's a job to be done. So instead of saying I'm not doing that because that's not my job, I think as a leader, it's important to create an environment that motivates people to say, that's not my specialty. It's not my wheelhouse, but it's something that needs to be done, and I'm willing to participate.
Hmm.
I think that's when you get phenomenal outcomes.
So so you want people who can see what needs to be done and then find a way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that they aren't worried about their job description.
Absolutely. Right. Because
How do
again,
you find those people?
I think everyone has the potential. Some people come into my team already having that skill set and that mindset. Some people have to develop into it. But what I find is that those that have to develop into it, the competitiveness in them wants to be on par with the production of the rest of the team. And so they absorb and learn and develop and grow, right? And I think as a leader, once again, you should provide that environment for them to be able to have success and have failures and reward both, right? Because it's all a learning. And then once you're able to do that, it'll be really obvious as to who is going to work within the chemistry of the team and who's not. And I think one of the other very important things to do as a leader, identify issues early and create solutions for them quickly, right? It's it's unfair for people that you lead if you allow them to struggle for months, right? If it's very clear that there's a challenge, it should be addressed early because ultimately maybe it's the synergy for that from that team is just not a fit for that person, and that's okay, right? So let's find a solution for that. But it's unfair for a leader to allow someone to remain in that team and them not have the ability to be successful because it hurts them and it hurts the rest of the team.
You're talking about two things that I have found in my work that are very, very important that so many leaders just do not understand. The first one is about creating an environment where people can grow and succeed. And that develops group norms and an organizational culture so that new people who come in get trained by that culture that you have developed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And second, that you got to hold people accountable and not let them slide.
Yes.
Yeah, because when people start to slide, then that's the message that you're giving that it's okay to do that. And I have worked with so many leaders that have not mastered the accountability piece, which is really driven by offering rewards for doing good stuff. If you
Mm-hmm.
do that well enough, then you really often don't need the
Mm-hmm.
penalties. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like to not think in terms of penalty, right? If there's an obvious issue and everybody acknowledges it, there should be a solution that doesn't feel like it's penalizing a person, right?
Okay.
It's just not a fit, and
Okay.
and
Cool.
it deserves a
Cool.
solution. Yeah,
I like that language.
yeah,
Right. And then you just counsel them to let's help you find a place that does fit.
yes, absolutely,
So nobody's a bad guy.
right, yeah.
Cool beans.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on your mind here today?
And again, I think we talked a lot about as a leader getting out of uh, people's way, right, and providing this space for them to achieve the most. Um, I think sometimes leaders often have to get out of their own way as well, right? We're self-motivated and we have our own goals, right? And we have our own visionary direction. And it's very easy to get tunnel vision with those perspectives. And sometimes you hinder yourself because you think you have the best laid plan, and there's no flexibility. And when that is the case, often you get in your own way, right? That's when you start missing the cues. That's when you start to miss the fact that you have someone you're leading that has a great idea and a great direction, but it doesn't match your plan. So you start to deviate them. as opposed to yourself. I think it's very important that you have goals and ambition, but as a leader, I think that there has to be lots of flexibility in that.
I just finished a video on leadership and ego. And it's like our culture is set up for leaders to have ego issues
Mm-hmm.
because everybody is quote unquote looking up to you. You are an authority figure. You must know what you're doing. If they mess with you, you can be dangerous to them.
Yeah,
Everything says follow the leader for better or for worse.
right.
And for a leader not to fall prey to that, that's got to be really, really hard. How did you manage that?
So I have to admit, I think I've been both fortunate and a little bit spoiled that I've been able to encounter some very, very great mentors that hold me accountable. And so I often have opportunities for self-reflection based on their perspective. And I think once you're willing to listen, right? Once you don't have the ego and you're willing to listen, and understand that they have your best interest in mind, I think it's very easy to start to develop leadership skills that will work for you and the people that you lead. We should be learning as well, right?
You're a man after my own heart. You know, again, the socialization in this country is that as a leader, you're supposed to already know,
Yeah. Well,
which of course is BS.
yes, absolutely.
If you already knew, what would you need all those people for,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a leader, why would you want to do it all and know it all? I think one of my favorite responses to questions that I get sometimes from people that I lead is, I don't know. Right. You found something that I don't have an answer for. Let's go figure out a solution together. Right. I think that's it's always a great opportunity to learn.
Amen. Curiosity works.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Even though, our culture has taught us that kill the cat, mind your own business, don't
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
nosy.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is leadership from a whole different perspective of,
Absolutely.
of how most people have been led, which is how they learn to be being leaders. And the support system that you talked about, I think, is just so critical. Trying to be a leader by yourself just is a non-starter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I get these dudes who say, Michael, it's so lonely at the top. I say, well, man, I think you're doing something wrong. Let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it
Absolutely.
need not be.
Yeah. And again, this is just my learnings and perspective, because I think as leaders, you often encounter those scenarios where you feel like you're alone. Um, I I often think about, the fact that I am sowing seeds that I may never see the fruits of,
Mm.
and I have to be okay with that. And I am, right. I think if you lead with, intent and goodwill, I think even the mistakes that you make should be curable. But I think that you have to be willing to plant some seeds, and you may never see the fruit that it bears.
And
Um,
there certainly is no way not to make mistakes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Super. All right. Any last words for us?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to see this journey that you have. I am eagerly waiting to get my invitation to subscribe for the first series, and I appreciate all of the conversations and support that you've provided over the years. It's been a very influential um, relationship, and I
It,
appreciate
it certainly has been my pleasure, Troy. I remember when I first met you, and what you have made of yourself makes me proud. So, and you should be proud of yourself.
it. I am, and it makes me proud to that you're able to see this fruit.
You take care now, my man.
All right, you too.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye bye.